Hey, everybody. Welcome back to 2 Hours on a Sunday. I'm Nick.
And I'm Brian. And today we are going head to head. We are diving into the two animation juggernauts, Disney and Dreamworks. And we both will be picking our top three from each that we feel that are our favorites, pitting them head to head against each other. We're not looking for a winner in this case because we both love Disney and Dreamworks. We're just thought it'd be a fun idea to put three of our favorites head to head, and then maybe picking one of our favorites of the opposite. I'll be taking DreamWorks today. Nick will be taking Disney. And we'll be mentioning a couple of our honorable mentions that didn't make our top three, but deserve, that spot.
This was such a hard thing for me to do because if there's one thing I struggle with is making tier lists.
And you had way more films to look at than I did.
So I went on like the Disney animation website and just went through like their calendar of posters. I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah. Every one of them from the 90s, you're like, oh boy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's that chunk, from like 89 to like 97 or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
and there's even a couple from 2000 to 2011.
Yeah. I kind of stuck my neck out on some of these because I was like, I could do the typical what everybody from our generation would say, but I wanted to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah. And to preface, we're doing just Disney. We're not doing Disney Pixar. So Nick's list got a little bit shorter because that would have been way too difficult. Because Disney Pixar films are their own monster, whereas we're just doing straight Disney films versus DreamWorks.
Exactly. Yeah. I was very happy when we agreed upon that.
Yeah. Well, because it'd have been 10 times harder.
Yeah.
There's so many great Pixar films.
Yeah, it's like, I got to pick between the 3 Toy Story movies.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Toy Story 3.
Yeah. So I would have said 2.
Yeah?
Yeah.
See, Toy Story 3 wrecked me, so that's why I would put 3 first. I love Toy Story 2 as well, but Toy Story 3, I went as a grown adult to see that, and I just came home and I couldn't even tell my mom what happened about it.
And I think it's where we kind of hold the sentimental values of the story, right?
Yeah.
For me, I'm like, we grow up, but for me, it was like Jesse's story with like, abandonment and wanting to be part of a family. I was like, that's what got me.
Whereas to me, I'm Andy.
Character. Right.
I am Andy. So the thought of giving my toys to somebody that I had so many years with, it just broke me. And then the journey of, them going into the incinerator together, holding hands, this is awful.
I remember I think Brandon saw it in theaters, and he texted me after. He's like, there's this scene that my intrusive thoughts went over and said, what if the movie ended there? And he didn't tell me what the scene was. And he's like, when you watch it, you'll know. And it was the incinerator. I'm like, don't even do this.
Yeah. You can't even put Toy Story 4 in this conversation. It's so bad.
No,
in comparison.
I think the animation is stunning.
Yeah,
but I think the story just doesn't hold up.
It just seems like a mini short episode. Like they do those offshoot shorts, like the Halloween one they did, the Terror.
Yeah, which I did. I enjoyed it. It was
it's
fun.
Like this Toy Story 4 didn't deserve a full feature to counter Toy Story 3.
It shouldn't counter like the original trilogy.
Yeah,
it should just be a new adventure. Don't make it too sentimental. Like, make it just like a fun, enjoyable thing. Because once you have like an ending like that, once it's so epic, don't try to recreate it.
Yeah, it was too good.
Yeah,
it was too good. But we're not talking about Disney Pixar today.
No,
I would love to talk about the Toy Story movies, though. That would be a great topic.
Okay,
be a great topic.
Should do that. We should do that in the spring.
Yeah, sounds good. So I want to first start off with if you had, say, 2 honorable mentions for your list, because I want to start off with a shock factor of how those didn't make the top 3.
Yeah, okay.
Because I don't know your top 3, you don't know my top 3. We went in completely blind on this.
Okay. Honorable mention number 1, Mulan. Like, these are all like teetering on the cusp of being in my top 3. The reason it's up there for me, like I guess I can't be like, why did I cut it out? I don't know, because
there's too many good ones.
Yeah. Like, the reason it's in my honorable mentions is because, one, the idea of like just the themes of like honor, sacrifice, and even like identity, and like overcoming like this traditional norms of society. That was something really unheard of back in the day when we were growing up with films. So having somebody, or having like a different audience being able to like identify with Mulan as a character, I thought that was super super cool. And animation was amazing. I loved the setting, like feudal Japan. I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's China, but feudal China. It's like, yes, please. And Mushu. Like, I wish I never saw the remake.
Don't.
Yeah, when I heard Mushu wasn't in it, I'm like, I'm not going to
It's
watch
not
it.
even the same story. Like, it
No,
doesn't do anything that the original did that made it so iconic.
that sucks. And I love the music too.
Hmm.
That was one of those. I liked it at the time, but then once I watched it a couple times when I was older, I was like, oh, you know what? This music is actually like really solid.
Hmm.
It wasn't like, I'll get into it. It's not like the other movies on my list with music, but
I find the earlier Disney stuff, as much as it is for a kid audience, as an adult, it hits so much harder. The
absolutely.
stories hit way harder, and you fall in love with them even more.
Yep. Well, and that's what I think for me, all of my picks boil down to. They're kids' movies, but they are for everybody.
Hmm.
And especially like young adults to even us looking back. I don't think I would have felt the same about certain ideas in life if I didn't see these movies and watch them, and they didn't resonate that much with me.
Well, that also limits them to never want to watch them again, right? You
Exactly.
want to, these movies bring something to your life, even messages or how you see the story that keeps you coming back to them. Or some of
Hmm.
the new ones, it's like a one and done.
Yep.
That's where I think Disney has lost their touch over the years with how they tell a story.
Exactly.
Now, do you want me to say one of my honorable
I
mentions
do.
before you go to the second one?
Yep.
I'm going to just lead with the big bang. Going to blow your
Yep.
mind. Shrek is an
Okay.
honorable mention.
All right. All right. I had a feeling. I really did.
Now, listen, growing up, Shrek was absolute life.
Yeah.
There was not one line I didn't recite. And, the story of two unlikely friends
Hmm.
trucking on this adventure to save a princess who turns out is just like our hero, but
Hmm.
doesn't want the world to know. It's a classic fairy tale, right? That's what Shrek is. It's all about the fairy tale. It's so fun.
Yep.
It has exciting elements. You're engaged from the get go. The comedy, you can't knock the comedy. They hired perfect.
No.
The voice cast was absolutely perfect.
Yep.
The overall story, I just think, as I grew up, like watching it now, as great as it is, it doesn't hit. It still hits. I'm not gonna lie, it doesn't hit.
Yeah.
It's still amazing, but it doesn't hit story wise to where I want my top three to be.
Yes.
As I can recite all the iconic lines, no doubt. I'm sure
Yep.
you can as well. You
Definitely.
know, life is like onions. I like an onion. The
Yep.
parfaits are delicious. Waffles. There's everything.
I
Everything about it you can remember.
that I totally I totally get where you're coming from with that. I feel like that was Shrek like the first
3D
big. Well, they
DreamWorks.
had ants.
That's true. Well, that doesn't
So
count.
no, it was like the big DreamWorks movie,
Yes.
right? And I think it was exactly what it needed to be. It was
Hmm.
like a spoof on the typical Disney fairy tale. I
Yes.
mean, it was a total fu to Disney to begin with.
I mean, hey, it worked.
It worked, and yeah, exactly. I think it definitely set the precedent for like quality stuff
I
in
think
the
so.
future. But yeah, like the emotional weight of it, I think it's not as like impactful as what came afterwards.
Hmm. And some people
Yeah,
said Shrek 2, people think Shrek 2 is better than Shrek 1. I watched it not too long ago, and I still think Shrek 1 is the best of the series.
I think so too.
And
Shrek Two's close.
yeah, and to preface my list, there's not sequels in it. Like I picked one out of the sequels. I can't
Yeah,
Shrek 1 through 72. You can't,
yeah.
even though they're making another one.
Are they really?
You watched Puss in Boots: The Last Wish,
Yes.
the ending of the movie. He goes to see old friends,
Oh
and you
my
see
god,
the
that's
island
right.
of far,
Far,
far
far
away.
away. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so they're
right.
making another Shrek. But yeah, definitely the first one stands the test of time. Like it'll never not be an iconic film, but it just didn't hit the mark emotionally as I've aged. Like if this was, say, 8 years ago, we were talking about this, Shrek 100% would
It
be,
still would have been there.
yeah, it
Yeah.
would have been there. But for how I like my films and it's so hard to rank them, it definitely coming in at number 4.
Yeah. So, okay, I have to say this. My order, like my honorable mentions, don't have an order.
Okay.
And also, my list has changed so many times. I actually had this movie in my top 3 last week. And that's the thing. It depends on the week.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just like, yeah, I'm feeling a little bit this week. And that's what I'm going for. So today, as of recording, one of my other honorable mentions is The Lion King.
I'm not
And
arguing with that either.
yeah, like everything about that movie is like near perfect. Even the poster, like,
Yeah.
like
They crushed posters back in the day, man.
they did, and they're all so different. It wasn't just like the
Today.
same cookie cutter. Yeah, it's not just the face collage.
Yeah.
It was magical, and again, music, themes of family, and
Shakespeare.
Shakespeare is essentially just Shakespeare,
Yeah.
ripped, and good for them for doing that and hiding it in this beautiful masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
Voice work. I don't know if I said music already, but music, yeah. Setting, animation style, like what the heck? Like, I think when I first watched it, just pure entertainment, right? But now you watch it again, you're like, nothing beats this. You can't say this is bad.
No.
There's so much care that was put into it. It should be one of those timeless movies.
That's because every movie mattered back then.
Yes. Yeah. It was, I don't know if it was like life or death of the company.
No, they were pretty big at the time, but like,
yeah,
when they made a movie, it mattered to them.
Yeah, it meant something. And I really feel that there was a lot of heart put into that movie. So that's another one. But last week it was in the top 3.
Nice. After I say this one, I'm just going to say my other favorites.
Yeah.
Because it was hard. But I would have to say The Bad Guys.
Okay.
Is my next honorable mention, because I'm not going to say anything to give away my top 3. So I can't put those in there. So for the sake of this, I'm going to have to say The Bad Guys. Now it's tough. I was going between this and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Okay. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is not in my top 3.
Oh my goodness.
And I'll tell you why Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is not in my top 3.
Yeah.
There is a character in that movie that I just can't stand, and that just has to take it down, because
the movies. Who was it?
Jack Horner. I just can't stand him in the movie. Something about him just puts me off, and he was kind of the dud of the movie. You know that he was going against Riding Hood and the Three Bears.
Yep.
Goldilocks and Three Bears. He was just that one character that I just never wanted to see on screen again. Yeah. And he kind of took away from the pacing of the movie. Listen, Puss in Boots is his character growth in that story and how they played it. Death is one of the best villains I've ever seen in the movie.
So amazing.
And so for that, I have to, like, everything it did so well. And the animation, mixing the styles, 2D and 3D, the colors, the vibrancy, the moment when his best friend, not best friend, the puppy dog, Betty, he calms him down when Puss in Boots is having like a heart.
Yes.
He's having an anxiety attack and he puts his head down. It was one of the best parts of the movie. Yep. And then just the ending fight of Puss in Boots overcoming death. Mm-hmm. Everything about it. I just cannot stand this character. And I was like, I don't want him in this movie. If he wasn't in it, it was just the rest, I could argue, yes, it is in my top. But for me, I don't like him as a character. And you could say he's supposed to be a villain. I don't care. I like a lot of villains.
Yeah, no, you're right. That actually, I never thought of that. Jack Horner for me was like, oh, he's kind of goofy, but I'm like, yeah, he's actually kind of annoying.
Yeah,
in this movie, and he kind of takes away from even Goldilocks and Death. I think it's kind of just one of those other obstacles that we didn't really need.
I agree. Death was the main focus, and Goldilocks was the nice substitute to chasing Puss in Boots for.
We didn't need like two
Yeah.
chasers.
And it just kind of made it all messy towards the end because they were just going after each other then. So
If Jack was in just his like castle thing
yeah,
and was left there, I'd be fine with it.
same. I would have gone that road as well. But the bad guys, I never
Yeah.
read. I didn't know this was a short story, like a bunch of short stories for
Oh,
kids. I didn't know about it. Adria told me about it. That our niece and nephew read a lot of them.
okay.
But from the trailer, I just loved the trailer, the design of the characters, and so I was super hyped to see the movie when it came out, and it just I was blown away.
Yeah.
This is the style other than Spider-Verse. This is the first time I was like, DreamWorks is trying something obviously new-ish. No, nothing touches Spider-Verse because it's they every movie looks different, even though they're doing the 2D overlays. But I
Yes.
was so surprised by how much I enjoyed the movie and all the characters. Voice acting was done well, even though Aquafina was voicing the movie, who I can't stand.
You do
I
not
can't
care for
stand
her too
Aquafina
much.
because she's just so overdone now, and everybody wants her in her movie, and I just don't get it.
Yep.
But when the movie was finished, I was wow. I was like, this was a great. I was waiting. So many animation movies come out nowadays that weren't up to the standards as the ones I loved growing up, and this was
Hmm.
one of those. I could watch this anytime. So that has to be up there with Puss in Boots. There was not one character in the bad guys that I didn't like.
Nice.
They
Okay.
all hit. The story was short and condensed. It was fun. It was like a heist mission. It was them. Have you seen the bad guys?
I haven't yet. I
Oh,
gotta watch
dude, it
it.
was so good. They were dealing with obviously being bad guys, but then the wolf, the big bad wolf, he gets a compliment and his tail starts wagging and he starts to like what being good feels like.
Oh, come
So
on.
that whole thing of him wanting to be the good guy and just I'm not going to spoil any part of the story for you because you
No.
have to watch it, but it's so enjoyable. And I think once you watch it, you might understand where I'm coming
Yeah.
from leveling with Puss in Boots. But I definitely think the Puss in Boots Last Wish destroys the first Puss in Boots movie in terms of
Oh, yeah.
how they told the story and the oomph behind it, and they really
Yes.
wanted to hit home with it. But my other two favorites on this list, I have to put. I love
Mhm.
Spirit, the Stallion of the Cimarron.
Yeah.
Growing up, it's just I loved. My mom loved horses, and like I couldn't go near horse because I was allergic, but I loved movies about
Hmm.
horses and just I love hand drawn animation so
Yes.
much. And whether that be how it looks on the screen or the colors or how talented the artists were,
Hmm.
but the story of a horse having a relationship with this guy who they wouldn't be unlikely. It's like the whole thing. Him and like Shrek and Donkey. It's like they're
Yeah.
not meant to be friends, but they grow a bond together.
Yep.
And just the story of him trying to make his way back home. It's the music's stellar. Brian Adams,
Oh, of
crushes it.
course.
I loved all
Yes.
the music growing up, and just the finale of it. He jumps the canyon makes it's
Yes.
unrealistic
Yes.
as hell, but I love just that one in general. Let me just take a peek real quick.
Yeah.
Oh, then there's also Rise of the Guardians, but there's too many good ones. But yeah, definitely Spirit is up there for me for my other kind of
That's
favorites.
solid.
But
Man, I'm really happy that DreamWorks has a competitive catalog. Like not just to Disney, but like you can actually look at DreamWorks movies and be like, that was good, that was good, that was good, that was really good. Like when you think you're like, oh, DreamWorks, whatever.
yeah,
But no, no,
they
no.
have a
Like,
great catalog.
yeah, yep.
I
I
mean, every studio has a couple duds. You're not gonna,
absolutely.
you know,
Oh yeah. I think I have an idea of one movie that's in there. I'll hold my
of my top
thoughts. I
three.
don't. Yeah. Now
Well,
that you said that.
obviously, they might be even in your top three
Yeah.
for the DreamWorks side. But what is your
Yes.
other honorable mention for Disney? Because I know, or so now you because you already said your two. Like
Yeah.
what are other ones that you love? Name like two that you can just pop off for no reason that you just
Oh
love.
yeah. I'd say Big Hero 6 for sure.
Yep,
Like that movie is just like
it's Chef's
yes,
Kiss.
yeah. It's like yes, I want a superhero movie that's not the Marvel movies,
Yeah,
and like the characters. Baymax is amazing. Like for being like a sidekick, if you will, that is very slow and meticulous. The balance that they have him in the movie as comedic relief, but also as like an integral part. It's amazing.
hmm
I love him. It doesn't slow things down too much.
because it's so funny. It's
It
so
is.
funny, and that's
It
what's so
really
great
is.
about comedy movies that the comedy comes from a situation rather than just terrible dialogue that most
Yes,
Marvel movies are nowadays. And
exactly.
then the brother storyline. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
so awesome. It's so good. And then another one, yeah, fine, fine, fine. Hercules.
I love Hercules, dude.
Yep. Like the intro song, like with the muses. Oh,
Da-da-da-da.
like
Yeah, it's amazing.
it's so
Hercules
cool.
is my top four, is my fourth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has to be up there because Greek gods, the music, animation with all like the angular
Yeah.
lines and stuff. Because it kind
Characters.
of the characters like it kind of reminds me of Emperor's New Groove, but that because like the angular and like drawing
Yes.
style kind of inspired that, right? Yeah, it's just all around awesome.
Dude, I love the Titans. I love the Titans.
They're so cool.
Every part of that movie hit so hard. And there was, I'm going to tell you a little story. There was, when I was in animation school at St. Clair, one of our
Mhm.
teachers, he talked about Hercules and why it didn't succeed. And I don't think I agree with his opinion because he was talking about how the movie was sectioned off and how it was told. In the middle of the
Mhm.
movie, when he fights the Hydra,
Mhm.
everybody thought that was the end of the movie because it was
Okay.
such a massive. So when the
Yeah.
movie kept going, people didn't, they said it didn't gravitate towards people because it was just, they felt too long because the movie had come to this climax of the Hydra. And I was like, I don't agree with that whatsoever.
Not at
Because
all.
he hasn't even become anything yet. He was trying to prove
Exactly.
himself to the people. And yes, it
Exactly.
was a big, massive moment of, but he hadn't had any
He hasn't
growth at
earned.
all.
No, he hasn't earned any of it.
Yes. But I think
Like
in terms of viewing for kids, like kids thought the movie was done and then they're just bored afterwards. But I don't, I think that's just a
no.
bad opinion.
Yeah, my when you as soon as you said Titans, the first thing I think of is when the one Titan like barfs lava.
Yeah.
I like this the smoothness of like the bleh.
Yeah.
It's so
All
good.
the Titans are amazing.
Yep.
The whole fight with Zeus, it's
Yeah.
too good. Hercules is iconic.
Yep. And it's like kind of dark near the end, right?
Hmm.
Like
Him trying
well
to
even
save Meg.
Meg in like the death soup
Yeah.
and what like and they get all like wrinkly.
It's
Oh,
like
I
the scene out
love
of
it.
Harry Potter and the Half Blood Prince when him and Dumbledore are in the cave
In
and with all the
yes,
people.
with the Inferi.
Yes, that's basically what
So
that is.
cool. Exactly. That's exactly what I thought too.
And he comes up a hero. It's such a great story.
Yep. And again, that was on my top
Philatides.
Philippines. So good.
I love the Scar cameo too.
Yes,
Back
the
in the day when
pelt.
they did all the cameos of their characters.
Yep. So good. So good.
All right, I say
Yeah,
it's time we dive into our three.
I think so. I think so. Yep. Do you want to you go first? You start
I'll
with
start with my third. I don't know
okay.
if this might blow your mind or anyone who's listening mind, but I'm putting Prince of Egypt as number three.
Oh. Okay. I
And
knew it was gonna be on the list.
it has to, it impacted me a lot as a kid. I watched it a lot, but getting the 4K remaster of it and watching it as an adult, it hits way harder. And the fact that it's a story from the Bible. It's the Ten Commandments, right?
Hmm.
And it has every single theme you're looking for in a story. The betrayal of friendship. It has the overcoming of the king. It has slavery. It has magic. It has the thoughts of a god not being real. It has the whole section of the beliefs of people making, it's basically an underdog coming to save his people. You can't beat a story from the Bible. And
Yeah.
like they've made the live action Ten Commandments that's forever long.
Yes.
But this movie is like 96 minutes
Hmm.
and it's hand drawn to perfection. And the
Yeah.
4K remaster just proves how talented people were back in the day. And every single scene, I don't know how they did it. The artistry, the liberties they took to kind of change certain scenes to make them more lively for an animation flick. When Ramsey's two goons show, because Moses comes up
Hmm.
and he turns his stick into a serpent and he's showing all the
Yes.
stuff to Ramses and he's like, oh, that's a cute little trick. And then his two goons start doing all their magic powers. And it's just such a liberating experience as an animated film because they wouldn't do that in live action.
Right.
They do all this extravagant stuff to bring wow to the screen. And then how they did all the plagues, the creativity behind the plagues, the scene when when the spirit goes through the city, killing all
Yes,
the
on Passover.
yeah, the
Yes.
Passover, dude. And then people freaking out when he turns the lake into blood, and then
Yep.
Ramsey's goons are like in the water. There's so much impact and intensity in this movie, and all the voice actors crush it.
Hmm.
And when you split the sea at the end of the movie, you can't beat a story about the Bible.
Yeah, yeah, man. Like those those traditional stories, like even in today's reimaginings of old tales, like we still see those glimpses, and it's because there's, I don't know, there's like something in us that we're just like, yep, we gravitate towards it.
Hmm. And then the scene when Moses goes to the burning bush,
Yeah,
it's so magical.
yeah,
And it's again, it's like you didn't have to go this hard. And
yeah.
I think for a 90-minute flick, it hits every single note. You know, you have the two best friends growing up
Hmm.
in Egypt, and then Moses decides to leave because, the king's done wrong. But then Ramses takes over and has the same kind of outlook, and two friends coming back together, and he has to stop his brother,
Hmm.
because he was adopted, and then it's a whole thing. And then the scene, what I love when it shows he first sees the scene in the temple, and it's animated on the wall of
Yes.
his mother saving Moses, the baby, like, or
Yes.
from the king's terror, killing all the
Hmm.
firstborns. It's so good. I can't. It has to be. The hand drawn animation gets me every time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm a sucker for it.
Yeah, and
For
it's good and
sure.
evil, good against evil. It's a classic story.
Yep. I didn't realize it was 90 minutes. Like,
Yeah, it's not long. Yeah,
good job.
they
Good
summed up
job.
everything in a seamless transition for
Yeah.
kids to understand the impact that this story had.
Yep. And yeah, like the Ten Commandments movie with
Charlton
uh
Heston.
thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's like, you got to be a little older to watch
it's
that.
like
I
three
mean,
hours, dude.
yeah, it's huge. It's such a massive movie. That's like a two
Yeah,
VHS
yeah.
movie.
Yeah, but I
But
just
yeah.
I just watched it so much growing up, and like when I saw the 4K was coming out, my inner brain was like, "The Prince of you have to pick this up because of what
Yeah.
it did to you back then, like how much you watched it, and watching it today for the first
Hmm.
time in let's say 20 years,
Yeah.
and it still hit just as hard because the story is that good."
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I'm glad it did still have that same impact for you.
You would be floored with how good the 4K looks. Like if I
I
give you
do
the
want to watch it.
4K, like
Yeah.
it's night and day because there was behind the scenes features of what it looked like on
Ooh,
the VHS and what it looks like now. I
I
was
love
like,
that.
that doesn't. It looks like all the old stuff, but we forget how much updated they've done to all the films we see, especially on Disney Plus or like the Blu-rays. We forget
Yes.
how dark and grainy, but everything still looked good. But like how
Yeah,
crazy the high definition upgrades are.
for sure. Oh, they probably put so much work into that to bring it like a new life.
Yeah,
Good pick. Good pick.
thanks.
Yeah. So I didn't say this before, but when I was thinking about the movies for like my top Disney movies, I was thinking, okay, there's different kinds of Disney movies, and I kind of distilled it into like three simple forms. There's like fantasy slash fairy tale princess thing. There's adventure, and then there's animal slash creature.
Hmm.
And I wanted to kind of get all of those in, give them all a little bit of representation, because I think without one, it's not Disney. So my first pick is going to be fairy tale slash princess. And I have to pick the second last hand animated movie that they came out with, being Princess and the Frog.
Really?
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. I feel like of all of the like princess movies or fairy tale movies, that's the my favorite one for a couple of reasons.
Okay.
One, it's set in New Orleans, which to me is just like I'm already sold on it. I love the southern influence. I love the music that they put into it. It's all New Orleans jazz. They actually had like really solid compositions. The characters, especially Lewis, the trumpet player, he's the crocodile.
Hmm.
He brings so much like life to the movie because of his playing, for me at least. And yeah, he's like a big, silly, goofy sidekick. It wasn't a deterrent because it usually is. Maybe it's because I'm just super soft on the movie, but I love him as a character. But my favorite character is Raymond, the little lightning bug. For
Hmm.
some reason,
Jim Cummings.
I, why is he so amazing? Why is he so amazing? Like, like as soon as I was introduced to him, I'm like, that's great. He's the perfect side character. He's goofy. But he's innocent. There's such an innocence behind Ray, and his story with Evangeline, like the star in the sky as his like true love. I'm like, yes, you're so sweet. It's the best. But in terms of the fairy tale, it's the Princess and the Frog. So it's just, a spin on kissing the prince who's a frog. But it's also about sticking to your dreams, like following your dreams. Recently, I think Keanu Reeves put out a video with like him playing bass, and he said, "Don't give up on your daydream." And
I saw that video.
yeah, I totally resonate with that because I think we're so focused on, surviving and just surviving. We have to work and work and work to survive nowadays, that we give up on the things that we enjoy doing just for fun. And I think it's okay to still always have that in the back of our head, always push for that. Like this, we're literally hanging out and we're doing a podcast. Like it came up so randomly for us, but we stuck with it. We're just like, we have to do this. And for me, seeing Tiana's push to have her restaurant, and it wasn't her dad's dream. It was what her dad provided to her. They had nothing. And she said, this is what I want to give back to the community. I was given this as a kid, even though we had nothing. It was, the gift of food, the gift of being able to share it with people. And that was another big part of it. For me, like music, food, those are like my top things. So when those are incorporated into a movie, it just makes it really special. It's very comforting to me. And again, 2D animation, I'm really soft on it. And it's the second last one because Winnie the Pooh was the next one.
Right.
It was the very final one, and I haven't seen that one. And you're probably like, "What's the matter with you?"
I don't think I've seen it either.
Seriously? Oh,
that's?
I think it's called.
Maybe I have seen it.
I think it's.
There's
just
a lot
called,
of Winnie the Pooh's movies. I've
know.
seen mostly all of them.
Yep. I think it's just called Winnie the Pooh.
Right. I remember the poster. It was like all yellow and they were in a honey pot.
Yeah, and they're just rowing on the honey river. Yeah.
I wanted that poster for so long. I might
cool.
pick it up.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a weird pick. I know.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, but I feel like if I wanted to give proper representation to all of the styles of Disney movies, I'd have to put that one near the top because it gives it's one of those, the princess has the agency to do it, but it's not, she still needs the help like we all do. We can't just be main characters going through life and we don't need anybody's help. We can rely on other people. We can put our trust in others, and sometimes it bites us. And then sometimes it does, it does everybody well. Also, the Voodoo Man, Dr. Facilier.
I was just going to bring him up. The scene with the cards is insanity. How they animated that.
It's awesome. Every once in a while, that song comes in my head and I just start like bopping around. It's so fun.
What about the grandmama with the snake?
Mama Odie.
Mama Odie.
She is so funny. I love her. She's the what's her name from The Incredibles?
Edna Mode?
Edna. She's like Edna, but for the swamp.
Yeah. Edna for the swamp.
Yeah, that was, I know it's a very controversial, but I when I first saw it, I thought to myself, this movie's awesome. And we watched it, Brie and I watched it not too long ago, and I thought the same thing. I said, "Yep, yep, I'm down for this." And we actually watched it just before we went to New Orleans, just to get
Nice.
us in the mood, and it was well worth it. Yeah,
Adria really likes Princess and the Frog too.
yeah,
Dana, her favorite princess is Tiana because she's a cook.
absolutely. And that was the other thing about it. She wasn't just a princess,
Yeah,
like she was like, I'm gonna be a cook.
yeah.
It was, oh, I loved it.
I agree with all your points.
Yeah,
For
but
me,
it's not
they spent too much time as frogs for me
okay. Okay,
because I thought the beginning I loved everything with her. She was an
yeah,
amazing protagonist. I
yes,
just thought at some point, like the whole movie was them as frogs, and then it was
yes,
only the last 5 minutes they were back to being themselves. And I would have
yep,
wished they would have gone back a little sooner, just so that her and her love story, whether like he would have appreciated her more rather than just the whole movie them as frogs. That's
yeah, yeah.
all the side characters. I love all the side characters. I just think for me, I would have liked to seen them more. Her follow
You
her
want some,
dreams
like,
more as
a
her.
human.
Yeah,
Yes. That I agree with. If they had a little bit, if they kind of resolved some of it a little bit before, maybe had a little bit of the betrayal as humans,
hmm
and then resolved it fully as humans,
yeah,
that would have been super cool. Because it was very, like, magic based. So
yes.
they were frogs a long time.
Yeah, because we watched it a couple months ago for my first time. I think I saw only a little bit when it first came out, but this was my first
Yeah.
time watching it. And at the end, I was like, man, they were frogs for the whole movie, and I
Whole
wish I would have
movie.
seen more of Tiana as Tiana.
Yes. Yep.
So that was my only gripe. Everything else, the
Yeah.
music, the characters, I loved all the side characters. She was incredible, but
Yep.
I didn't want them frogs the whole time.
That's fair. That's
Yeah,
fair. What is your next
this is
pick?
the most difficult decision in terms of picking a movie in my life.
Yep.
And, I think it only has to come to this point in time. It's talking
Hmm.
to you why I'm finally making the decision because it
Yeah.
was number one and number one. I don't think there was a number two, but I think I have to put my number one where it is. And I think I have to say Kung Fu Panda 1 as number two.
Oh, solid. Okay.
It was tough.
Yeah.
And I love this movie forever.
Hmm.
And it's a classic underdog tale. And if I was watching it like a week ago, again, and it really brought to my attention. This movie is almost like Star Wars. And let me explain.
Oh God.
So, so you have Shifu
Hmm.
and Tai Long. Tai Long, he's one of my favorite antagonists of all time.
Yep.
Shifu and Tai Long, and then you have Master Oogway, who he's basically like a spirit in a physical form, and then eventually he passes on. But
Hmm.
Shifu and Tai Long's relationship is like Obi-Wan training Anakin Skywalker,
Hmm.
where Tai Lung being the one who's meant to be the dragon warrior because Shifu says he is. So there's
Hmm.
like this prophecy, but Oogway only sees the darkness that's brewing in him, which is the council, who doesn't
Hmm.
allow Anakin to be a master because of the darkness. Yoda sees that he's
Yeah.
not meant to be what everyone thinks he is. And so when Tai Lung finally realizes that he's not meant to be the dragon warrior and he goes after the scroll, and then Oogway has to banish him,
Hmm.
and then he gets locked away. And then when he comes back, it's basically like Vader versus Luke, where
Hmm.
Poe is the one to bring balance and to
Yes.
restore Tai Lung's
That
whole
is
thing.
so
It's
cool.
it's there's a lot of similarities between Anakin Skywalker and the
Yeah.
Force, and then him becoming the chosen one to be the Dragon Warrior. But on top of that similar, like me thinking like, oh my god, he's just Anakin Skywalker. Tai Lung is Anakin
Right.
Skywalker, and it's so badass. But Poe as a character, the most underdog characters of underdog characters.
Yes.
You have Jack Black. Any movie that has
Hmm.
Jack Black already gets a point,
Winner.
but
Yep.
this is his character. And
Yeah.
we go back to the whole situational comedy. Poe is hilarious, not but
Hmm.
because of what he's saying, because what he's doing. And the Furious Five, I love the Furious Five, and the whole Shifu not believing in Oogway's reasons for picking Poe just because he fell out of the sky,
Yeah.
and Poe's excitement for just wanting to love Kung Fu, and the story of the Dragon Warrior being it's nothing special. It's just you.
Yeah.
And then it relates to Poe's dad, who is a goose. And he has a secret ingredient in his secret ingredient soup, but the secret
Yes.
ingredient is nothing.
Right.
It's just how much love you put into it. And when Poe
Hmm.
finally realizes it's just him, and it took a while for him to realize he's special
Hmm.
and everybody has something inside of them, it's an amazing message. But the back and forth between Shifu wanting to get rid of Poe is so funny to me. And then when he finally realizes Poe has something inside of him, when he's reaching for the cookies,
Yes.
monkey's
Yeah.
cookies, and then he's like, "How did you get up there?" And he's like, "I don't know." He's like, "Look at you, you're doing a perfect split." He's like, "I was hungry," and so he like sneaks away. He wants to test him, and he's like, he goes out of the corner. He's like, "Oh, by the way, monkey keeps his cookies on the top shelf because he wants to see more of his thing." And he goes back and Poe's up there doing, "Look at you, you're doing a perfect split." So he uses food as motivation, and he realizes that Oogway Poe was picked because he wanted to bring peace to Shifu.
Hmm.
Shifu was so destroyed because he loved Tai Long so much, but then that partnership and the relationship got destroyed because of the anger that fested in Tai Long and how
Hmm.
Shifu didn't believe in him. And then that was Shifu's first love. And then even because they go into Tigress not
Yeah.
being what Tai Long was. And they have this
Uh-huh.
whole similarity where Shifu wasn't his heart wasn't in training her because it wasn't Tai Long. And then the whole battle between Tai Long and the Furious Five, like Tai Long breaking out of the prison is one of my favorite scenes in like any movie. And like he's just a master at his craft. And then when he fights the Furious Five on the bridge, and
Hmm.
it's just like he's like, Shifu didn't teach you everything. And he hits him with the nerve move, and they
Yes.
all just like crumple. Then he has the crane carries them all back to Shifu, and they realize that Tai Long is coming. But at this point, Poe doesn't believe in himself, so he goes back to his dad because he saw the dragon scroll, and it just he doesn't understand. And even Shifu looks at it, and he's like, "I don't get it. What's going on?" But then his whole confrontation with Tai Long is, he doesn't Poe doesn't want to hurt anybody, and so he's using Tai Long's attacks against him, and he's just having fun with it. And all the Tai Long's never fought anybody like Poe because he's only fought apprentices of Shifu, and they all
Yes.
fight like him. So he knows
Exactly.
how to beat Shifu,
Right.
but he doesn't know how to beat Poe because Poe is so out of this world, and his tactics make absolutely no sense.
Yep.
And like he attacks him with his belly, and like he's shimming around the scroll because Tai Long's trying to get it for all this absolute power. It's just like Anakin wanted to turn to the dark side to save Padme. It's like Shifu and Tai Long wants the Dragon Scroll because he thinks he can be the most powerful in order
Right.
to prove everybody wrong.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
it's a,
It's
it's an amazing,
misguided.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
misguided, and it's honestly part of Shifu's fault for instilling that into him,
Yes.
because it's the same thing
Yeah.
with Anakin Skywalker where they said he was the chosen one.
Hmm.
And then the whole time he's like, well, I am the chosen one. Why am I not
Right.
granted this? And then he turns to people that he's not supposed to.
Yep.
There's a lot of hints of Star Wars in it, but it's just a tale of being an underdog and overcoming something. Everybody has something in them that can be
Yeah.
special. And as a three, it's 2008. And I was like, this
Oh,
movie
wow.
looks so good. And all the
Hmm.
characters are incredible. And then what I love is the metaphor of the tree, the peach tree. Shifu, he's talking to Shifu and Oogway, and he says, Shifu's like, well, I can control when the fruit falls. And he's like, I can control where I place the tree. But then Oogway says, well, you can't control when it decides to blossom. And
Hmm.
and then Oogway goes off into the spirit realm. And then this is when Shifu realizes, okay, I'll train Poe. And then he realizes his quirks, and like he can
Yeah.
actually do all this stuff if he's persuaded by food. So he gets the
Yeah.
dumplings, he trains him with the dumplings, and he can't control when Poe turns into what he's supposed to. It's only
Right.
Poe's doing.
Yeah.
And I think once Poe realized he wasn't the Dragon Warrior, like anybody could be, it's just something inside of you. And their whole
Mhm.
relationship building together, and him at the end finally having peace. And then Poe lays next to him, and his little feet move, and he's just like, so you want to grab something to eat? And then he's like, and then Shifu goes, okay, and he's like, yeah, they're finally together, and it's the whole story. Like that's why I can't put Kung Fu Panda 2 and 3 in my top three, because the whole trilogy is perfection. That's why I couldn't mention them in my honorable mentions. But 2 and
Yeah.
3 are 4, and like they're all up there because Poe's journey, even in the second movie, it's so funny he doesn't know he's adopted. It's so funny that he thinks that's his dad. And because he
Yeah.
says at the end, he says, there's something wrong I wanted to ask you. And he doesn't ask, but his dad knows that
Yeah.
he's adopted. But Poe doesn't say anything about he's adopted because his dad, the goose, wants to say, he wants to bring up to him that he's not his real father.
Hmm.
But that's not what Poe's talking about. And it's so
No.
funny because it's just that's how Poe is. And there's a little thing at the beginning of the movie when he's fighting with his action figures and he's chucking ninja stars. I don't know when
Yeah,
the
yeah.
last time you saw this movie, but I
A
saw it
long
like 2
time
weeks
ago.
ago, but you have to
Yeah.
rewatch it. But at the end of the movie, when he's back in his room, there's
Mhm.
still ninja stars on the floor. So he's still practicing his ninja stars.
That's awesome.
Like he's still
Yeah.
that same kid inside that loves kung fu and loves what he loves.
Yes.
And he doesn't want to be a server of noodles.
Right,
He wants
yeah.
to, he has something greater for himself that he wants, and that he wants to follow his dreams of being like a kung fu master.
Right.
And I just think everybody in the cast delivers a perfect performance. And I don't think anybody listening can disagree that Kung Fu Panda is one of the best, not even DreamWorks movies, best movies of all time.
Oh, it's so good.
So that's
It's
my number 2.
nice.
I just
do
praised
wanna,
the hell out of this movie, and then I still have my number 1.
You have number 1. Like, what is happening? No, those I gotta rewatch those very soon.
And the music. The music
yeah.
is so good. Also, another thing I forgot to mention, what I love, they bring hand-drawn animation into it, where it's like the keyframing, where they're telling a story at the beginning with the scrolls,
Yes.
and they're telling the journey of like something that's the Furious Five and all that he's reading. And every time they're doing that, even in the second and the third movie, they started off with like these hand-drawn animations of the Dragon Warrior, and like everything is, and then it comes into 3D. I absolutely love everything about this movie.
Yep, that is very understandable now.
Yeah.
I'm so curious to know what number 1 is now.
Beat that.
I don't know if I can. So I watched this movie recently because we were doing this, and I was like, I haven't seen this in years. And there's been a couple reiterations recently. One of them not so good, other one very much praised, but I haven't finished it. But the next movie that I'm picking as of today is Pinocchio. Now, this movie to me is one of those simple life lesson movies that everybody needs to watch. It's like, I don't care if you don't like cartoons. I don't care if you don't like wooden toys. I don't care if you don't like cats or whales. You should watch this movie.
That whale is terrifying.
This is also one of the scariest movies I think I've ever watched. But this movie to me it's not really meant to scare you, but it's meant to tell you that being truthful and honest is the most important thing for us as human beings. Yes, there's always an easy way. There's always an easy, potentially lazy way to get through things, but it's not the right way, right? And like for me, this was my first interaction with that concept. It's like there's the right way and then there's the easy way, and you have to make that decision every single day to become a better person. And when was this movie made? Like the 50s?
Yeah, I think it was like 53.
Yeah, but I watched it and I'm like, this is still a solid movie. Yes, the voice acting was a little bit, it could be desired to have more solid voice acting, but
I feel like they had the same voice actors for like back in the day. They had like a couple people they just went to for voices.
Exactly.
Even Walt Disney himself was doing a lot of voices.
He did. Yeah. He did a ton of them. And I think for me, it was entirely the story of Pinocchio coming to life and him being entirely innocent, not knowing a single thing about the world and the dangers of it. And, the fox comes in and wants to swindle him into the circus. And he's like, but I have to go to school. And he's like, nah, don't go to school. That's silly. You're going to be a star. He's quite successful with Stromboli's circus. He's making a lot of money, but then Stromboli gives him a a nut as payment. He said, "Oh, that's mine. Great, thanks."
Mm-hmm.
And then he throws him in the cage, and from there, it's just pure terrifying to me. But you're in his position. Like, there's very few movies that I put myself in the position of the main character. I know you and I watch movies very differently, but you do that quite a lot, and I think that's a great way to watch a movie. But this was the first time in a while that I thought I wouldn't survive if I was Pinocchio here. So the stakes, the stress of it is all very intense for me when I watched it. Then they finally escape, and then they get swindled again, and then they're off to Pleasure Island, where all of the kids get to do whatever they want. But it comes with a catch, because they'll turn into donkeys. They're asses.
Mm-hmm.
And they lose their voice. And this is what you get for, being a careless, reckless kid. And you're just an ass. And that's, I mean, that's what happens in life.
Yeah.
If nobody tells you to, you should be a good person, you should care about other people, you should try to do good things, you should tell the truth, you just become an ass. And they're stuck. There's no way of getting out. And that's the thing. Those donkeys are donkeys forever. They don't get turned back into humans. There's no magic spell on them. They're just donkeys forever now. And I thought this movie is like the first time where there's permanent consequences for characters, even though you don't know them. I'm like, whoa, they're not coming back. They're donkeys.
Yeah, it's like if you go down that path,
you're there.
that you're destined for that outcome, even in real life.
Yeah, unless you're Pinocchio, who has a conscience that can actually pull you out of that. Because all those other ones, they don't have consciences. Jiminy's the only manifestation of a conscience, and nobody else has one. So he's the only one that can actually break free from this. Geppetto goes out to find Pinocchio, and then he gets eaten by the whale. I'm like, what? and that's a old Bible tale. That's Jonah and the whale, where he gets eaten by the whale. I don't remember that story. I haven't gone through that in a long time, but the imagery of that, and he's stranded inside this whale, and it's destroying everything. Pinocchio goes in and meets up with Geppetto on the ship. You're like, oh, what a coincidence. This is meant to be now. And just the whole, I don't know, for me it was the sentiment of being honest and listening to your conscience. And yes, you might have to make some challenging decisions throughout your life, but you're going to grow. The other thing too is, this is life is a gift a lot of the time, especially when we're doing well for ourselves. And for Pinocchio, it was the same thing. Life was a gift. He was a wooden toy, and he was given life. And that was, I think, why I went back to that movie very randomly, because we were talking about it, and I said, maybe I'll watch Pinocchio. And I'm really glad I did, because even though that movie is 80 years old, it is, for me, the lessons in that movie that will be always true, no matter who we are. It is also about identity. Who do you want to be? You have to make that decision. It's hard. It's got to be hard. And I don't know, that movie, I do want to watch the Guillermo del Toro one. I've
seen that one recently.
Yeah.
Whereas the Disney one, I haven't seen Pinocchio since I was maybe 7. So
Yeah.
I might have to go, after your interpretation of how you felt, I might have to go back and check it out to see where it would rank.
What did you think of the Del Toro one?
I thought it was good. I thought it was a good telling. See, all my knowledge just comes from the old Disney one.
Yeah.
But I think that he did a great job with Pinocchio's character. Obviously, the stop motion is out of this world.
Yeah.
The parts of it, it's like you don't really like Pinocchio sometimes in his version. And
Right.
then Geppetto,
Well,
it's like, but the overall him coming back full circle
hmm
with Geppetto at the end of the movie and then becoming what he knew he was rather than I think it was a great tale, but I think it's a little bit it's different from Disney's
yeah.
in a whole,
Well,
but it's just a story from a book rather than Disney's telling.
that's interesting you say that, though, that you don't really like Pinocchio, because you shouldn't.
Yeah.
He's a little stinker.
Yeah.
He's not like, even in the Disney one, you're like, this kid sucks.
Yeah.
He's and I think as a 30-year-old watching it, I think, oh, you're so silly. Like, why are you doing this? You're such a goof. But he's a kid who literally just popped into existence,
Mm-hmm.
and
At
he
like
has
7 years old.
yeah, 7.
Or
Remember
something
being
like that. I don't
7?
know.
Yeah, remember being like a 5, 6, 7-year-old, and you're like, yeah, that sounds fun. I'm gonna do that. So, and no guidance before that.
Mm-hmm.
It was, this is all it is, and I think, yeah, we shouldn't like Pinocchio, especially at that time. He should be annoying. He should be the opposite of who we want to strive to be, especially at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm on I'm on a roll with the controversial ones, but
Yeah.
but for me, it is definitely about. I guess it is the story for this one. It's one of those enduring tales, like Prince of Egypt. I knew that was on your list because we chatted a little bit about it, but I'm like,
I didn't
he's
tell
definitely
you
going to put
what
that on.
was in my list,
No, you didn't.
but I pretty much when I watched the movie, when I messaged
You
you
were
after
like,
I finished it, I
yo.
was like, yo.
But yeah, again, that's one of those tales that's it's been around for so long, and it's endured, and it's not for the content, but the message that it resonates with us.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was number 2 for me.
Number
Weird, I know.
ones.
Yeah. Oh,
This
this is
is the
so.
heavy hitters.
Yep.
So, are you ready? I don't think this is going to come as a surprise, but my number one DreamWorks movie is How to Train Your Dragon.
No. I was waiting for it this whole time. I'm like, honorable mention, 2, 3. I don't know.
I couldn't say 2 and 3 because then it would tell
Yeah.
you what were in my top 3.
Yep.
But How to Train Your Dragon is a spectacular film.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just about another underdog story of a boy who's meant to be something that his father wanted him to be, and he's just the total opposite. Him becoming allies with the thing his father hated the most.
Mm-hmm.
And he had to change his father's outlook and opinion on what dragons were to the island of Berk. And Hiccup as a character, he knows he's not his father, but he's so likable and charming and clumsy. He's the every man who's not a Viking, he's like what I would be in that situation. He's a blacksmith. He knows how to build things. He has intelligence. He uses his intelligence and what he discovers secretly working with Toothless to his advantage in the ring to make everyone like, oh my God, he's Stoic's kid, right? He's the one to lead us in the future. But the music in this movie, the main theme of How to Train Your Dragon is the most heroic, magical track that makes you believe in everything.
Mm-hmm.
And you first get to hear it when he rides Toothless for the first time.
Yep.
And the trust they have to build together. Like, talk about building a trust, throwing these two characters in a situation where one can't fly anymore and one doesn't know how to fly.
Yeah.
Right? Hiccup doesn't know how to fly, but he has to make this dragon fly. And he's the one steering the ship because Toothless can't do it by himself.
Yep.
And the relationship those two build is so heartwarming. And how his father finally comes around and sees the man his son is, and that he is, because in the middle of the movie, he says, "You are not my son."
Yeah.
It's a whole father-son story because Stoic lost the love of his life, and we don't know where she is. She comes into the later movies, and the minute those two see eye to eye in the second movie is so magical. But in this movie, when he finally realizes he has to save the creature he's been striving his whole life to destroy in order to save his son, and the part when they're falling together and he's like,
Oh my
please
god,
save my
yes.
son, and the fire is engulfing them, and you're like, it got me again.
Yep.
And the finale of the movie, when they're both broken individuals,
Hmm.
because he loses his leg, but it's the same leg that Toothless lost, like his
Yep.
part
The
of his
wing.
tail.
Yep.
And it's just those two are meant to be
They're
companions
partners.
and partners
Yeah.
forever.
Yep.
And the bond they have, flying Toothless alone, but the trust in each other, the moment when he touches him on the head, when he first
Yeah.
meets Toothless, and then he brings him a bunch of fish, and there's like this, he is a very, the design of Toothless, it's very Stitch. Stitch is
Yes.
so loved, and they're like, okay,
Hmm.
let's just make Stitch a dragon,
Yeah.
because he has the eyes and the ears, and he does all the waddling around like Stitch does. Then he has the teeth when he
Hmm.
can retract his teeth. But when the moment when Hiccup throws his knife away, closes his eyes, puts his hand out, and lets Toothless come to him,
Hmm.
again, it's such a magical movie.
Oh yeah.
And it brings tears to your eyes every time you finish it. The score alone, like, you care about these characters. When Stoic finally says, you are my son, I was just
Hmm.
going about things the wrong way, and having Hiccup making the island realize, we've been wrong this entire time. We're not meant to destroy dragons. We're meant to coexist together.
Hmm.
Just leading into the other three films, the first movie just is a pinnacle of storytelling, of a relationship, and an underdog, and overcoming obstacles. And the obstacle is his own father.
Yeah.
How crazy is that? That your
Yeah.
villain of the
It's
movie, there's
family.
no villain in the movie. The
No.
villain is acceptance of your father.
Hmm.
Now, the second and the third movie, the second one I feel is, I would put last. I would go 1, 3, 2,
Okay.
because of the villain. And because the relationship between Hiccup and Toothless is so great, and how he needs to be the alpha, and his father is
Yeah.
finally accepting of him, and they're changing their entire ways. I just feel the villain of the second movie, I don't think he was needed. Like, he's there, but because the first one did it without a villain, having a
Right.
villain that's not the villain, because the villain is the other alpha titan dragon,
Yes.
makes him less. Even though he did a phenomenal job voice acting and the character was so cool and all the circumstances, I just think having a villain being underdone by a dragon villain makes it less. But
Yes.
then the third movie, Hiccup having to let Toothless go and be
Oh
on his own
yeah.
with the Light Fury, and like him again, they end the movie the same. Like, he puts his hand on his head and he says, "Go, bud." He
Yeah.
said, "Please just go. We'll be fine." It's like, it's your time to live your life. It's like, now that Toothless can fly on his own, because he built him this new,
That's right.
and like him going back at the end with his kids. Oh, and then like going to the center of the world basically, and Toothless is there with his the night lights,
Hmm.
and then him attacking the boat, and then Hiccups, and he's full Viking. He's got the beard and everything, and just the journey of, he's saying, "Hey, bud," it's like, me, and then he puts his hand out, and then Toothless immediately puts down the facade of being the protector and jumps
Yep.
all over him, and it's just, and the music hits again. It's a story, the full arc of those two as characters.
Hmm.
It's some of the best storytelling in movie history.
I feel, just as an aside to this, I feel like DreamWorks does the best when it comes to friendships above anybody else. Their friendship stories, their companionship stories, you can't beat them.
Right. Can I tell you a real point I wanted to make about Disney
Yeah.
versus DreamWorks,
Yeah.
and overall how I would pit against them? I think Disney is only as good as their movie songs are,
You nailed it. You
because
so nailed it.
DreamWorks doesn't have the crutch of making a soundtrack that, if the songs don't hit for you, you're not going to remember this movie.
Right.
DreamWorks has the ability to step back, make a powerful moving story with an
Hmm.
orchestra, and making those connections of a character arc, and having basically a film, rather than Disney is making a movie, a musical, to make kids be entertained. And if
Yep.
those songs are not good,
It's nothing.
because the story is only as good as, they've had the same story for years, but it's
Hmm.
the songs that put them above all the other movies. And I feel
Exactly.
nowadays, especially, if their songs are not good, the movie is horrendous.
Yep. I
Or if they
totally
don't
totally
have
agree.
songs, they can't make a movie.
Yeah.
Strange World is an example. I'm sorry, but
I
that
haven't
movie
seen
is
it.
horrendous.
Yeah.
But I think that's the main thing against Disney versus DreamWorks. DreamWorks has the edge where they do not need to worry about a song.
Yeah, yeah, their stories are they're more heartwarming and family focused now, at least in the
DreamWorks?
last 20 years. Yeah,
Yeah,
in the last 20 years than Disney is now.
I agree.
It's such an interesting like shift because I think Disney had that back in the day, like when we were growing up. They were like, "Oh, we've already done this.
Hmm.
We're gonna try some new stuff." And like, there's Moana. There's
Which is amazing. Moana was
yeah,
their last great feature film.
yes, agreed, 100%. They had Tangled, so like
I
Tangled and
loved it.
Moana.
I love Tangled,
Those,
dude.
yeah,
Tangled,
they're so good.
it's. I think it's in my top 3 for Disney.
It that was my second pick for like a fairy tale
Yeah.
movie because I was like, oh, this one's really hard.
Hmm.
I put Moana as an adventure movie, not as a princess movie.
Gotcha. I would agree with that.
But yeah, they're way fewer, and you don't feel the same like happy, heartwarmy feeling
Hmm.
in Disney movies, whereas where you do with DreamWorks. And I think How to Train Your Dragon is the epitome of that. Because I haven't seen them in a while. I think I saw them when they came out, especially the third one. But shout out to Jay Baruchel
Yeah.
as Hiccup. Amazing.
Hmm.
Like, it's such a perfect kid. Like,
Gerard Butler, Stoic, is his best role he's ever done.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's so good.
Yeah. I watched all 3 in a week.
Oh,
Because I watched the
nice.
first one. I think we watched the third one first, but then I knew we were doing this, and I said, "Okay, I have to." The first one is so iconic, I have to watch it again because I've
Yeah.
watched it maybe 4 or 5 times. I watched it once with my mom, and she was a wreck at the end of the movie as well.
Yeah.
But after watching the first one, I watched the second one, so I watched all 3 in a week. And the story,
It's
it's the same
amazing.
thing with Kung Fu Panda 1, 2, and 3, where I think is the second Kung Fu Panda is better than How to Train Your Dragon 2. So I
Mhm.
would put the trilogy as a whole. I don't know, it's tough, but How to Train Your Dragon is definitely the greatest DreamWorks movie and one of the
Yep.
best movies ever made. And I
Yep.
think for Disney and DreamWorks, as well as like Kung Fu Panda and How to Train Your Dragon, tie up with some of the best Disney movies from like the 90s, where I
Yes.
think Disney owned the 90s, but from 2000 and say 4,
Yep.
DreamWorks owns the 2000s to now. Like,
I agree. I totally
where
agree.
Pixar had a lot of hits in the early 2000s, but from
Yep.
2010 after Moana, like it's all DreamWorks.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, because I don't feel as I don't feel as excited to watch a new Disney animation movie. I'm like, I'll pass. I'll watch a Pixar one. I'm more inclined to watch a Pixar movie over a Disney animation movie, but
Hmm.
I'm 100% now like excited for a DreamWorks movie.
Yes.
I don't know. It's good that there is because you always want to say like, oh, Disney, I'm a Disney fan. It's like,
Yeah.
sure, but like it's okay to change it. Like
Yeah. I
it
also
feels,
think
yeah.
DreamWorks has the edge in character design.
Oh yes,
The character designs in Kung Fu Panda, How to Train Your Dragon, Puss in Boots, the Shrek films, the bad guys, they're all so distinctly different.
yes.
Like every character in How to Train Your Dragon is so appealing. Where I
Hmm.
think it's a Disney movie. It's going to look like a Disney movie. Whereas
Yeah.
every DreamWorks movie looks different. And
Yep.
the characters
Well.
draw you to the screen, and you're falling in love with how the characters look, act, their personalities. They're
Hmm.
created for the purpose of story. Whereas Disney, it's like, well, it has to look like a Disney film. All
Yeah.
princesses have to look the same.
Yep. Oh, and that's why. Well, even with Wish, that just came
Yeah,
out or is coming out.
it came out last week.
Okay. I was like, this looks like the Frozen characters with a 2D overlay.
Hmm.
And I'm like,
I'm gonna give
make
you a
it
hot
different.
take. I know they
Yeah.
wanted to. It's the Disney like their 100th film or something,
Yes. 100.
and they
Yeah.
wanted to bring the new and the old together. But let me
Mhm.
tell you, there was one statement by one of the people making the film that said, "We chose to make it 3D and not 2D because we could do more with 3D over 2D." And I 100% disagree.
I
Because if
100%
it's like,
disagree
did
too.
you not look at any of your movies from the 90s, 80s, early
Uh-huh.
2000s? They look better. Disney's Wish looks so dull and boring.
It looks like bland.
It looks so
Yeah.
bland. I'm like, I'm not seeing this.
I think that was the one of the like the
Creative directors or something?
yeah,
Yeah.
she's like high up, and
It's like, in what world
I'm like, that's an opinion,
can you
and I
say,
think it's wrong.
yeah, it's 100% wrong. All the Disney 90 movies look 1,000% better than Disney's Wish. And it's not just
Yes.
because you chose to do a mixture of both. So many movies nowadays that do both that look better. You have obviously Spider-Verse, The Bad
Yep.
Guys, The Mutant Mayhem looks
Yep. Puss
better
in
than Wish,
Boots.
Puss in Boots,
Yep.
just because
There's
you decided that you wanted to, yeah, the watercolor. Okay, the watercolor paintings,
you can do that with 2D.
yeah, the backgrounds don't look good. There's not enough lighting in this movie to make it stand out or do anything. So I think you're just trying to, they were trying to promote this movie because no one wants to go see Disney anymore.
I know. It's really sad. And
Yeah.
it's like I think they should take a break.
Yeah.
Like focus on other projects, fine, but like come up with something to really bring people back. Not just chug out another one.
And also, do you think they even have, like, there's amazing artists in the world that
Oh
work for these
yeah.
companies, but do you think they even have the staff capabilities to do a whole 2D hand drawn on paper? Like, I guess not on paper, but like they have software now for hand drawn.
Right.
But like, I feel like everybody's so accustomed to building their skill set in 3D and all this stuff that hand drawn has kind of lost its way.
I think they do not like the number required for it because of the precedent that they've set. And it's really crappy to say that
Yeah.
because they said that this is our thing, this is what we're doing. We're going to hire, very talented 3D animators and this is going to be our thing, and they've essentially put themselves in a corner to limit what they can do with the development of this 2D 3D blend. That is, I think, that's the next logical step in how movies should go. So companies can still hire 2D and 3D animated artists without restricting what they can do.
Right.
Or yeah. So they're not in a position that they have to convince people to say this is much better than what we could have done with 2D.
Yeah.
It's like
That's such a lie.
everybody and their dog disagreed with that statement
Yeah.
if they actually like read it or heard it and thought about it for 5 seconds.
Because those artists are still out there.
Yes.
And if you look at an example, Netflix did a movie called Claws, all 2D.
Amazing. Yep.
Okay. What are you saying that you couldn't achieve? Your 3D movie looks so dull and boring that you said you couldn't achieve that with 2D when Claws did it not too long ago. But all your movies, your catalog is all 2D drawn and set a standard.
Yeah.
And you're saying you couldn't go back to that for this movie? The technology is all over the place.
It is one of those situations where they've put themselves in a specific corner. They put all their eggs in one basket, and now they're kind of stuck. And that's why I think they do need a little bit of a break from this because the quality is not there. Like we said, a couple of the 3D ones from the last couple years, well, last decade, were phenomenal. Like Moana and Tangled, I think were the two best ones of the 2010s. For sure. Like 3D animation wise.
Yes.
And they're always coming up with new pieces of like animation technology to make it better or make the movie unique. And there's always, there's something new that's going to wow you. It's like the water or the hair physics, or when they do Pixar and they had Hank, the octopus, when the tentacles all moving. It's like, oh my goodness, that's amazing.
Finding Dory.
Yeah. Like there's always some new engine that they're creating to make the animation unique, but their character designs are definitely not up to par to DreamWorks.
You know what's funny about what you just said is that they create all these assets to create that, like the water, the hair, the tentacles, what you said, but they were drawing that back in the day without all this.
Exactly.
Look at Ursula. They were doing that before Hank was invented. Just because you haven't had the technology for 3D, you were doing this with your pencil and a piece of paper.
Yeah, hands.
Water, Little Mermaid.
Yep. And that's I follow a lot of professional artists on Instagram because that's all I want my feed to be.
Yeah.
And there's so many of them that are very much against the use of like especially AI in art,
Yeah.
or using people's art to train AI. And I agree with that. It's like, keep it like with the professionals, like the people who actually do it. And yeah, there's definitely things that AI or like computer programs can aid in making their lives easier. Totally agree with that. But don't take the job away. Ursula was you nailed it. Perfect example. And yeah, Hank was cool. Definitely.
They even did it in Monsters Inc.
Yeah. With
His
like the swordy guy or
and the
whatever.
fur.
Yeah, in the fur,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like Sully's
Yeah.
fur in the first Monsters Inc. But yeah,
Yep. Yeah,
they're
it's
just excuses to
very
make people go to the movie because they
exactly.
don't believe in their product.
That's yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you can tell when something is said and it's not genuine excitement, or they don't fully believe it.
Yeah. Every single time a movie of theirs comes out, whether it's Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, they're always promoting some trailer when it drops that it says phenomenal, brilliant, best in
Yeah.
years. Okay, it's the biggest lie I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, and again, I think it's not to knock or diss any of the animators who've done like the new movies.
Yeah.
They're all tasked with a job. They have to do it, right? And they're probably some of the best in their field because they're working for these huge companies. But it's all a matter of who's telling them what to do,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the part that I think we don't jive with very well right now.
And who's telling them what to do is creating content for a platform rather than a movie for
Yeah,
a experience in the theater, like a feature. They're not focused on creating their golden age catalog. They're focused on creating content.
exactly. And I think that the if all the companies strive to create a new golden age for themselves, that's exactly what is going to create good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You have to push. You have to be like it needs to be great. Not better than the last one, but it needs to be great in its own right.
I agree.
Doubling back on a couple of topics we had before. So you had mentioned Disney movies, their quality is parallel / synonymous with their music. And that actually brings me to my number one. And I
Here
think
we
you know what
go.
it is. I think you know what it is.
Well, I didn't know your third or second, so this
I
might throw
know.
me for a loop as well.
Yeah. Number one, Chicken Little. Just kidding. Home on the Range. Just kidding. It's Tarzan.
As is mine.
Yeah. This was very much a no brainer for me. I mean, we did a podcast on it already. Like,
But do you think watching that for that podcast made you realize how good the movie was? Because obviously you've seen it back in the day, but obviously looking at it, like having to do a full conversation on it and really having you to dive deep into it
Yes,
and having
I think
different
that
our outlooks, like Brandon was on it as well. His outlook
yeah,
on why he also thought it was incredible.
yes, I think it does take a new rewatch and a new discussion of it to bring it back. Right? I think that is for a lot of things. I think when we can discuss and brainstorm, spitball ideas on how we perceived a movie, how we enjoyed it, it creates a new level of appreciation for it. Because I could watch that movie anytime, but I didn't, just because there's other movies to watch. But when we watched it again and then we talked about it, I thought, nah, this is really, really special. There's not a lot that competes with it. And that was, I think, one of the last, for me, Disney movies that was really the heartwarming Pixar, or sorry, DreamWorks level heartwarming for me.
Tragic.
Yes. There's it's family and identity and trust. All of those things come together. There's loss because Kerchak goes, and
Consequence. There's so much consequence in his Tarzan's mindset of wanting to be where he's supposed to be, but then betraying his family because he doesn't know the dangers.
Yeah.
And that goes into what you said about starting with the music.
Oh, that soundtrack. Again, we did a whole chat about it, but there's that was the only right decision. hire Phil Collins and let him do his thing for this movie. It's utterly perfect from the first song to the end. And the one family theme that comes back every so often, even in terms of hints when he's, trying to get it. Like that's how music should be. We should hear the leitmotif come back when the character's experiencing like just glimpses of that idea of family, of making that decision. Again, hand drawn with 3D elements.
Mm-hmm.
With the
trees when
vines,
he's
trees.
surfing through the trees. But
Yeah.
talk about a movie that looks phenomenal in 2D. Don't tell me you can't make a movie look good because you don't have 2D doesn't bring that. Have you seen the backgrounds in this? The lighting and the composition? We talked about it in the podcast. This movie looks incredible. There's so many scenes in this movie where the lighting is like you create your own lighting in 2D.
Yeah.
Right? And they had to do that. And there's so many scenarios where the lighting is so dynamic. And you can't tell me that Wish couldn't do any of that because you had to try to do both. Get out of here.
And that's when you put the artist's interpretation of what it should be or what it could be in the movie, not just using, here's your light source, boom, like it's constant and that's it. If you make it fit the frame for where it is, it doesn't matter. Like it's a movie. It doesn't have to doesn't have to be confined to the restraints of reality.
Yeah.
It needs to suit the image that we're seeing in front of us.
It's art.
It's art. Every single frame needs to be a piece of art. And that movie, you can pause it at any time and you think, wow, put that on my wall.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if
not any time because there's those smear frames.
That's true.
But yeah, every single background and every single, say, main scene they have, you can pause it on those scenes. Like you said, and just boom.
Yep. And yeah, that movie, from the music to the story to the character development to
the voice work.
The voice work. I cannot in good conscience have anything else beat it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe it's because we grew up with that movie and we had the hype for it. But again, it could also come down to how it was marketed to us. They believed in this movie and they thought, they said, look at this, go watch this movie because we're excited about it. And I don't feel like that for a lot of the new movies. It's kind of just, here it is.
Oh, another Disney movie.
Yeah. And
it's not, it's another Disney movie.
Right. Yeah. But back then we had Little Mermaid, Lion King, Mulan, Tarzan. What else was there? At that time, what was the Renaissance?
Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast.
Aladdin.
Oh, thank you.
I have the whole Disney Plus on my movie shelf.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not thinking of the 90s, like 2001, Lilo and Stitch.
Exactly.
Lady and the Tramp. That one was okay. But in terms of, you had, Peter Pan, Mulan, all those, you could list 10 off in the 90s and late 80s that were hits back to back to back.
You felt it was magical, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this was the first one that I went to Disney a couple times as a kid, and I always loved Animal Kingdom. Like there was the safari, and there was like the rainforest area, and then there was the like Southeast Asian area. And when Tarzan came out, that was like Animal Kingdom in my brain just exploding.
Yeah.
It was, I thought, oh, nothing can beat this. And still to this day, I'm here, number one, Tarzan. Like I can't beat it. Everything about it is so good. And it really, really resonated throughout childhood. And it's just persisted to now. Can
I tell you something?
Yes.
Tarzan is my favorite Disney movie, but it's also my number one movie of all time.
There you go. It has to be.
And I have a lot of great movies on my list, but there's something about Tarzan, the way it looks, the music, the characters I love. I mean, growing up as a kid, animals were everything.
Yeah.
I walked around constantly I still have the issue where I can't push myself up unless my hands are in a knuckle form. It's 8 years of just doing that as a child, going around on a swing set, jungle gym. Everything about the movie was and still is. Nothing today has matched
No,
those.
no. There is a certain magic to it, and I hope that kids these days appreciate what they have, even though it is very different from ours. I hope that they can still feel the same way that like we do about Tarzan.
And I want to ask you this question because it just popped in my
Yeah.
head. Do you feel because there's so many Disney princesses that Disney has in their catalog that say Hercules or Tarzan, it's like that's one of the few movies they made as like we see ourselves as a main character?
Fair. That's a
Because
whole.
you have Big Hero 6, right? You have him, but like other
Yeah.
than that, like okay, Mike and Sully from Monsters Inc. That doesn't really count.
No,
But
no,
then
no.
like I feel like Tarzan and Hercules, like I'm looking at the wall, besides Atlantis,
Right.
like who else is a main character that's not the lead? Like Tangled, you have they're all the side characters are always male, but
Yes.
who is driving the story as the main character?
Right. That I totally understand. I never really thought of that. Yeah, there's not a lot of male heroic type leads. Yes, Tarzan, Hercules. That's about it.
Now I get it. Male leads have been like the main thing.
But
People have been
forever,
fighting
yeah.
for this to have
Yeah.
female led roles. But
Yeah.
as a kid watching a Disney movie, there's something about being 6 years old and connecting with a main character.
Yeah. Who isn't a lion?
Yeah, who's
But you
not
like it,
Simba?
yeah.
But
Yeah.
like all the the young girls had Disney princesses that were their absolute
Yeah.
favorite. Whereas us, it's like, okay, I'm Hercules,
Hmm.
Tarzan,
Yep.
and Big Hero 6 wasn't until like 2012 or
Exactly.
2014. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Tarzan was everything to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it came at the exact right time for
Hmm.
us. And it made a big
Hmm.
impact for
Same
sure.
with Toy Story. Toy Story
Yeah.
was itself other than just being the lead roles, but as a movie.
Yeah.
But this was the first time where Jane is a Disney princess, but Tarzan was the icon of the movie.
Exactly. Exactly. Now that was yeah, that movie is very, very highly regarded for me.
What's one that you were most looking forward to that just let you down hard in the last 10 years?
Oh,
You want me to go first? Because that's right on
yeah,
the top.
please.
Raya and the Last Dragon.
Oh yes, that was it. I was trying to remember the name.
I went to Ottawa for my third year animation class. There was like, you go there for the festival and you can go talk to basically to try to get a job.
Yeah.
But there was a part where they were showing at this theater, they were doing Raya and the Last Dragon. They were showing like a Disney pitch and they were showing
Hmm.
you the pre-production stuff and like all the sets and one of the main women who did all the concept drawings for the look of the film was there and she was talking about the process of this. I was so excited for a
Hmm.
movie about a lead who has a dragon. Like I love dragons. That's why
Yeah.
obviously another thing why How to Train Your Dragon isn't my number one.
Yep.
But I was so let down by this film.
Me too. You watched it first. You didn't say anything to me, and then I watched it, and yeah, it was just like disappointed.
When the first trailer came out, I was like, this looks so cool. It looks so
Hmm.
different. The lighting and the textures and the tone of everything was shifted from our usual.
Yep.
And then when I saw it, I was so disappointed.
It was the quality of the story. It missed its mark
Yeah.
in a lot of respects. Yeah, that I think is the biggest disappointing movie that I was looking forward to. That's why I don't get hyped for movies now because I don't want to be disappointed.
Because Raya was just a Disney movie, right? Wasn't Disney Pixar?
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
Where Disney
Yeah.
Pixar, Toy Story 4 was my biggest. It's like, first, I didn't want the movie in the first place.
Right.
That
You're
was
like,
another thing. But
just leave it.
Raya, I was like, after Moana was so iconic for me
Yep.
that I was like, Disney, they're making another great one. And it
Mhm.
just didn't do it.
Because they had Frozen.
Frozen 2 also was a big letdown for me.
It was.
I was so hyped for Frozen 2. The marketing was perfect. The
Well, when they had
mystery of the
Yes.
forest. We should do one where we rewrite. We were going to talk about rewriting that movie, weren't we?
Yes.
A couple
Yes.
like
We
months
should
ago.
do that. The colors when they did the purple and the red. I'm like, yes.
Yes.
Just And it's kind of, there's like fall leaf colors everywhere. They sold on the visuals of it.
Yes, I thought they were going to get
Absolutely.
into like because Elsa is the ice princess, like she's, but then there's like the mage of the forest. I thought they were going to get into
Yeah.
all these different elements, you know?
Mm-hmm. Nope.
Nope.
Just disappointed.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was another letdown.
we should do that. Frozen
We
2
should.
rewrite.
Yep. I, should we do a Frozen 2 and a Raya the Last Dragon
I would, yeah, let's do
rewrite?
it. Let's
Yeah,
do
let's
two
do it.
separate times. Yeah, I would love
Yep.
to.
Because, yeah, like the foundation is there, but just the stories didn't make sense. I don't know.
And it's not just because I can't stand Aquafina, but she was the most irritating thing in that movie besides Rhea in her journey. Like
Yeah.
I'm going to rewrite the whole thing.
Well, yep.
Season 3 next in the spring. We'll do
There
those
we
two
go.
part of our thing.
Good.
Because Frozen 2, I was so disappointed, man. Frozen
Yep.
1 was some of their best.
Absolutely.
Obviously,
Yeah.
the song carried them into the biggest movie of all time.
Yes.
But
Oh yeah.
I mean, Frozen 1 is a simple story, but it had amazing music, great characters, quirky
Mhm.
characters, and Frozen 2. And now they're thinking of doing 3 and 4. How about you just focus
No.
on 3?
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
They're like, oh,
there
it's
it
too
is.
big of a story to do just one movie.
Then it's too much.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
You should have did better on the second one, even though the second one made $1 billion because it
Yeah.
had the first one's backing, but it's just
Yeah.
not. It's inferior.
That's another thing I wanted to bring up. I think DreamWorks does an amazing job with sequels
I agree.
where Disney does not.
Yo, Kung Fu Panda 4 is coming. Can we talk about? I know we're going long, but this is the length is necessary.
This is important.
So here's the thing I watched in Kung Fu Panda 1. I don't know if you know this, but Tai Long disappeared at the end when he fought him because he used the wushu finger hold.
Yeah.
Oh, you know this hold. It's an amazing thing. But he disappeared. And so the thing is, when you use the wushu finger hold, you send their spirit into the spirit realm. And so in Kung Fu Panda 3, when you have the main villain gathering the spirits of the spirit realm, Tai Long was not there. And so the fourth movie, the villain is the chameleon.
Mhm.
It's this new villain, and he is using, I don't know the whole story. The trailer is coming out soon, but he's using Poe's past in like the villains against him. So I think of the spirits. So I think Tai Long is going to be a major force, a major plot point in the fourth movie because it has to tie the first movie together because he wasn't in the spirit realm in the third movie and he has to be somewhere. So I think this villain is going to bring back Tai Long in a crazy way. But that's just the rumblings I've been hearing.
Yeah, that is so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I do want to watch those movies again. I'm gonna definitely watch all 3 Kung Fu Pandas and all 3 How to Train Your Dragons again.
Yeah.
To go back because you said Tarzan is your top pick as well. How to Train Your Dragon for me is my top DreamWorks pick for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking, I'm like, oh, Shrek. No. No.
Shrek is an entertaining movie with a simple, fun story, but it's not
it's not peak.
on the level of Kung Fu Panda or How to Train Your Dragon.
No, not at all. I don't feel as like warm and fuzzy with Disney movies as I do with DreamWorks.
Yeah, anymore.
Yeah, anymore. Exactly.
Yeah. And it's not just because we're getting older.
No,
we still have the same feeling of movies as we did back in the day.
Exactly. I'm excited to watch movies.
Yes.
I read a quote somewhere. It might be C.S. Lewis or something. A kids movie should not just be enjoyed by kids. Or something like that. Yes. If it's enjoyed by everybody, then that's a good movie. If it can only be enjoyed by kids, it's a bad movie. And I agree with that. I think because it's made by adults, so there should be that life lesson, that experiential development throughout the movie. We should have that, and the kids can learn from that, but we can also resonate with it as we've learned and grown too.
I don't know who said it. It might have been Guillermo del Toro, but when he's talking about the Oscars and how the Oscars don't see animated movies as features, they see them as just kids' movies. Whereas I think he came out and said it takes more effort to create an animated feature film that is worthy of an Oscar. That how do you not see those movies in the grand scheme of Best Picture? you know,
Yeah.
whereas like the Oscars, the animation's like one of their first categories that's not even on the show.
Right.
You know, it's like, how do you not, with Spider-Verse, it won Best Animated Film. It's like all these films, I think that's when he was talking about Spider-Verse being, how do you not see, animated movies are not kids' movies. They're
Right.
films. And I think that
Exactly.
ties well into, if they're not made for everyone to enjoy, then they're not well made.
Yep. It's a disservice to the people who've put the work and care into them.
Mm-hmm.
We grew up in a good time.
We definitely did.
And this new era of movies should continue to grow, not necessarily with us, but for everybody. Well, even like Arcane, when that first
Dude,
came out,
Arcane was a phenomenal show.
it was amazing. It was
Season 2 is
amazing.
coming.
Yes,
I think it's
yes,
not, I think it's end of next fall or 2025, but finally it's coming. But Arcane
yep,
blew my mind. Talk about a movie that looks, a show that looks good. And it's not just an hour and a half like
exactly.
Wish, where you had to make 40-minute episodes. Every single
Hmm.
one of them was a painting of perfection.
Exactly. And I'm not a League of Legends fan, but I'm a story fan, and that story was great.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not about the content or the spectacle of it. It's about telling a good story
Mm-hmm.
and putting the care into it
Yeah.
altogether.
I want to end it on this. Animated features are something special that comes around often, but only the good ones kind of stay around. But I
Yeah.
think animated features are more special than live action films because of what they could do to an entire generation, an
Yeah.
entire age range.
Yep.
Everybody can enjoy them, and there's something special about sitting down to watch a new animated feature that still gets me excited over. I love live action movies, but something about a fantastic animated feature
Yep.
goes a long way.
Absolutely. I have nothing else to say about that. That was perfect. You're right. Yep. This has been 2 hours on a Sunday. I'm Nick.
And I'm Brian, and we'll catch you guys later.